Hello, fellow human beings. Are you feeling powerful today? I know I am. Well, just want to let you know for everybody who's signed up to join our waitlist for the EMF 101 Wireless Health and Safety course, we haven't forgotten about you. You're still on the list and you're still going to get a discount. But what we wanted to share with you was a sample lesson that we created so you can get a taste of the course and see if you even like the instructor. His name is Roman, and his ability to teach you about some of the basics that we forget about on a daily basis because we truly are more powerful than we know. In today's modern day, we're so bombarded by the media and so much fear, but our aim is to just teach you on the basics and little steps you can take to be proactive in your health in the modern day. So, thank you again for your support as a subscriber. And please, if you're not a subscriber, feel free to leave a comment on this article. And we love you. And remember, you're more powerful than you know.
Well, welcome back to Module 2. In the last lesson, we covered how EMF and cell phones affect children on a physical level. And on this lesson, we'll take a deeper dive into how all this technology affects the mental and emotional aspects and relationships as well. So we'll learn how blue light creates addiction, how loss of emotions leads to decreased cognition, how social media specifically targets children, and why suicide rates have skyrocketed, particularly since 2009, and how the technology manipulates mental states through posture, and how we can use that same posture and body language for our benefit to reduce stress and regulate important hormones like cortisol. So, how does blue light lead to addiction? Well, we touched on this in the last lesson, but I'm going to reinforce it because that's what dopamine does. It reinforces things. And dopamine is not only the reward chemical, it's the chemical of more. And why is that important? Well, just like eating a salty pretzel or a chewy donut is pleasurable, the issue with dopamine is that it makes you want to do it again and again. And blue light will gradually deplete dopamine. So that is an issue because now your reward pathways, you need more and more and more of something, even more than before, because now you have less dopamine. So blue light also activates an enzyme that's specifically designed to lower dopamine in our bodies called mono oxidase amine. And these MOAB, that's the enzyme, MOAB inhibitors are given to Parkinson's patients. Now, why am I mentioning that? Well, because Parkinson's patients have low dopamine, right? So when you inhibit the enzyme, now it's not able to lower that dopamine for them anymore, right? It's regulating their dopamine balance, and that's why blue light is so crucial if you're older or if you're younger to get in the morning as it's balanced. And we'll go into that in future modules. So Peter Wybrow, who's the director of neuroscience at UCLA, he calls these screens electronic cocaine, and he studied this issue in depth, and he's seen how the blue light can stimulate our frontal cortex just like it would cocaine. The same regions are lit up, and it presents itself as clinical mania, excitement over acquiring new things, high productivity, fast speech, and then followed by sleep loss, irritability, and depression, just like a cocaine addict. And 8 to 10-year-olds, and this is a stat from the American Academy of Pediatrics, on average spend 8+ hours in front of a screen. Now, this is, I would say, bare minimum, because if they're in one of those schools, where they've graciously been given one iPad per each child, now you're spending 8 minimum, and then you go home, probably in front of the dinner table and all that, right? And in their rooms. So it could be 24 hours a day. So, again, just to dive deeper into the addictive pathway. So, damage is created in an area known as the insula. Insula is a Latin word for island, and it's wrapped around all these other areas of the brain. So it's deep inside, and it's involved in our capacity to develop empathy and compassion for others, and it also lets us integrate physical signals, right? So if somebody looks distressed, right, has a frown on their face, we know that they're sad. Well, blue light will reduce the activity of the insula. So now that affect you may see from somebody else or needing help or even a smile, right? It's going to lose that meaning. And I find from many people now that they say that overall they're just losing that zest in life as they once had. So, multiple studies have also shown atrophy, which is a shrinkage or loss of tissue volume in specific gray matter areas where mental processing occurs, specific executive functions like planning, right? And that's a result of internet or gaming addiction. And a lot of studies have gone into that, and I will link those sources in the lesson notes as well. So this is just a picture of Noah on the right, who is a gamer, avid gamer, and then his sister and brother, they don't play video games at all. And you can see how much more brain activity is lit up on their brains, where Noah is kind of flatlined. Okay. Now, how does social media target children? Well, you may be surprised to know that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates themselves didn't give their own children wireless devices. They weren't getting high on their own supply, it turns out. And Silicon Valley executives and engineers enroll their kids in no-tech Waldorf schools. Waldorf school was founded by Rudolf Steiner, or I shouldn't say founded, but it's based on the philosophy of the German Rudolf Steiner. And why do I say that? Because so many people that are in the corporate sphere, they will often poo-poo things like, Rudolf Steiner and some of his approaches that are holistic, while yet endorsing it privately themselves. Now, Google founders Sergey Brin and Larry Page, they went to no-tech Montessori schools, along with Jeff Bezos and Wikipedia founder Jimmy Wales. So in these schools, they actually teach finger painting, believe it or not, because people like this, they know that a child's theta brainwave, which is what facilitates creativity, potential, dream states, and grows new neural connections, is very active up until 8 to 10 years. And after that, you start to get into different brainwaves. So it's a window of opportunity to grow our brain. So, according to an article by Bloomberg written in 2013, tech executives admitted, just like the big tobacco executives admitted, if you're looking for young people, there's no better place to find them than in schools. And I don't know if you remember, but Common Core, that was introduced by a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it was something that was considered very controversial at the time, because they were coming in and now changing the curriculum and arguments about that. But it was not really intended to do that, because that was more of a lost leader, like you see at the grocery store, right? They put out some beautiful avocado for $1, and now they whack you with something more expensive right after that, right? So Common Core, to my understanding, was designed like that because it wound up being a boon for tech, and it was a gold rush for iPads once the curriculum was introduced. And there was a documentary made about all this with these Silicon Valley executives, a lot of them that grew a conscience, and they decided to speak up. And it's called The Social Dilemma, and I highly recommend anybody watch that that's interested in this. But it showed how the scroll effect of these phones was created to mimic that of a casino, because each time we swipe up, it activates neural circuitry, just like our dopamine, and we constantly think, maybe we'll win, maybe we'll lose, right? Let's see who likes me or doesn't like me. And it is just, again, that chemical of more, right? It's constantly reinforcing things. So, how does social media target children on an emotional level? Well, through things that obviously are eye catching, but through three basic instincts, very, very primal emotions: love, fear, and then another one that you may not have thought of, but mastery. And we're going to get into why the emotion of mastery or independence is very important when it comes to children. Okay, and you can see there on the right the guy who's smiling with the Newport. Probably doesn't smoke Newports at all, but you can see that love and connection, and everybody's having a great time. So, emotions, and this is based on the work of Joel Bakan, who wrote the book Childhood Under Siege. And he's studied this topic extensively, and he knows that emotions, they drive everything for children, right? We know that. And marketers also know that because they engage, like I said, these most fundamental emotions at the deepest level. So love, like I mentioned, nurturing, affection, romance, cats, kittens, gummy worms, right? Not that worm is loving, but you know what I mean. It's in that cute kind of packaging. Fear, we have a ton of that on social media. I know children who say, "Oh, I saw the cat that was thrown over the bridge," and people laughed. And I don't know how they even got a hold of that video, but all this stuff is obviously being made. And now the final one I want to review is mastery. So obviously, children, they want to have independence from adults. I know I did when I was younger. Now, tech knows this. So, however, instead of mastery, the polar opposite is the intention, which is slavery, because it deliberately turns a child's mind, into prey and lifelong captive of the market. Just like I remember when these master classes were coming out when the pandemic started, you can become a master in 30 minutes, just to take this course. And it's not very authentic from that angle, because it does take a lot longer to really become a master of anything. But there is an appeal to our mind, right? That we can master something. We can have the independence right away, the instant gratification. And the tech giants know this. They use the same tactics when it comes to social media and children. So, and in the book, The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate, he cited all this, and he referenced as well that cognitive skills depend on a firm emotional architecture, right? So we need to build that basis of life, what people are signaling to us on an emotional level, so then we can think about what that means, right? And vulnerability, counterintuitively, leads to growth. And when we're not emotionally vulnerable, we're stagnant, right? And this is what the social media is doing. As soon as somebody gets bullied, they shut down. That's it. Their vulnerability, they're not vulnerable anymore to their parents, to their friends. They're finished. And this leads to further boredom, and it undermines curiosity and learning. And as children, and even as adults, we need to be vulnerable, right? Because this opens us up to, hurt, but also new relationships and new growth. And when we fuel distractions, this takes us away from our present moment, right? And even neuroimmunologists, which study how the brain affects our immune system, like Mario Martinez, who wrote the Mind Body Code, he posits that addictions are just that. They are distractions. Now, the best thing we can do is to take life on the offense. Well, so many of us are in a defensive posture when it comes to tech, with our heads down and things like this, or afraid of being bullied. And vulnerability is our ability to, well, to be free, to take criticism and then have it roll off our back, or develop new relationships. So a child's protective response to being mocked, as I said, is to shut down their vulnerable instinct. And Gordon Newfield, who also researches this, he is seeing that children are losing those tender feelings, even the sadness, the feelings of alarm or shame or embarrassment. These are, when we think of tech and cyberbullying, we think of these feelings, but it's even worse because the kids aren't even feeling these feelings anymore. They're just feeling emptiness. Even there's no more blush, and interestingly, Newfield has shown that when we lose our ability to blush, this correlates to a loss of empathy. Again, bringing it back to the insula. You're losing the ability to empathize or recognize emotion in others. And just like being caring, right? It sets us up for disappointment. If you tell somebody, hey, maybe you should take that phone out of your jacket pocket, it's right by your heart, you may get a heart attack. You're opening yourself up to criticism of, well, they may think you're nuts, right? But if you really love them, wouldn't you actually say that? So this is, again, from the documentary Social Dilemma, but this is also sourced from the CDC. And Jonathan Haidt did an expose on this as well, who studies how social media impacts children. And 2009 was a turning point because we got the iPhone that had the first front-facing camera around that year, and we had the like button was introduced. So when this happened, well, it created what an author I know on Substack, his name is Pico, he's called it the like button apocalypse. Because now you can see yourself, you take selfies, be more open to criticism, and people could vote on your looks. So girls specifically had 70% increase, so even more than boys. So this chart is just for girls, but I wanted to point it out because it's striking that even at a 10 to 14-year-olds, 150% increase. And so that's compared to an average in the year 2000. But, it should be zero, right? I mean, what are we even comparing averages? So this is the computer processing power that is expected to, how much is expected to grow. And you can see the exponential rate. And why am I showing you this? Well, do you think girls or teenagers stand a chance in front of the power of this kind of device? No, they don't. So that is just my opinion, of course. So again, vulnerability, it can be used to our advantage because we view, when we say risk, we think it's negative, right? There's a negative connotation. But what many social psychologists are discovering is that there is such a thing as positive risk, right? Again, opening yourself up. So you may want to raise your hand in class and be willing to get the answer wrong, or be willing to face the criticism of your peers. But so often we're not, because our bodies are being trained to stay in that submissive, obedient posture. And how is this happening? Well, lack of physical activity and children on their phones all the time. That's how it's happening, because the body, it can be rewired by the mind and vice versa. And I will show you some studies that, and people who are showing this to be true. So Amy Cuddy is a social psychologist and associate professor at Harvard Business School, and she did a TED Talk where she showed how just 2 minutes of power posing boosts confidence as our stress hormone cortisol is lowered and testosterone is increased. So when we think of alpha males, we think of dominant, right? Or alpha females as somebody who is very dominant in the office, right? And maybe high testosterone. But it's a double-edged sword because we also don't want them to be over dominant. We want our leaders to respond to stress well and to be calm, right? That whole strong silent type, there's something to that, right? Because we need them to not freak out when things go south. So this is based on Cuddy's research, and she showed that after these power poses, just 2 minutes, on the left, you'll see the cortisol change. So the high power people had a significant decrease in cortisol, which is our stress hormone, just by taking those high power poses. And the low power people, well, they had about a 15% increase. So they did a low power pose for 2 minutes. And then the testosterone change, you can see that the low power people experienced about a 10% decrease in testosterone after doing 2 minutes of those low power poses. And the higher power people, they had a significant increase in testosterone after doing 2 minutes of power posing. Okay, so let's show you what some of these poses look like. So that's low power. Okay, so think of an office worker all day like that, right? Or in front of your phone, right? You're basically stimulating cortisol by doing that. Okay, now this is high power. The one on the right was dubbed the Wonder Woman pose. Okay, and this is not about being overly dominant, just being assertive, right? Standing your ground, literally. Okay, I love the guy on the left who's just relaxed, right? And he's not worried, right? He's, again, being vulnerable. He's opening himself up, but he's also able to relax. And on the right, that's a very low power pose. You can see how the woman is covering her carotid artery there. That's an instinct of, I really need to protect my life. And when it comes down to it, high power is all about being laid back, right? Being able to take on all obstacles. And I find this posture interesting too because it's akin to meditation, right? It's somebody who is thinking, somebody who is able to step back and take a look at all variables. And that is what they are not doing for the children now, right? The children are told just what to think, right? Versus stepping back and doing a finger painting, right? And yeah, maybe not look like they're doing a lot, but they are. They're rewiring their entire brain and their life. So what does it look like now? Well, we are in a high cortisol, low oxygen environment because our necks are stretched. So if you ever heard of tech neck, this is what is creating, right? This dowager hump. It's a hunchback. And we're almost going to turn into squirrels, I believe, right? This is just my joke, but constantly looking for that reward, that little nut. But when you're constantly looking for that little nut, well, just be careful because you may not be able to find any pretty soon when you're going to be addicted. So again, now the grandmother on the left there, or the older lady on the left with that landline, she may have more testosterone than a child now because she is relaxed. She's on that phone that's not emitting any radiation. And, as a joke, I created this graphic here, but it's all about being relaxed, right? So having that ergonomic setup, the environment is everything, right? So if we can set our children up for success this way, hardwire their computers if they need to be on a computer, right? Have them stand, right? Children need activity. There's so much we can do. And, or, obviously you can stand as well. I stand all day. And believe me, I thought it would be hard, but you really get used to it. Humans are meant to be active. We are meant to be on our feet. Okay? So, again, opening yourselves up to vulnerability, right? Like the gentleman on the left, there's so much you can do in terms of working out outside, right? You don't need to be indoors chained to your phone in a gym of blue light like that squirrel on the bottom right. You can be like the eagle, right? Accepting all the wavelengths of this full solar spectrum. And what stands between you and freedom is that green valley, right? It's, do you want to step into that true light, right, of abundance, of choice that is yours? And just to touch on as well, this isn't what this course is all about, but the Nordic and the Vikings, they would carve runes, which was, a form of art, but also a form of, well, divination. And the one on the left is called the Algi's rune, and that is one of growth, right? It looks like a tree, and it means life. And what have we been programmed to think peace is? The peace symbol. Well, it's the Algi's rune turned upside down, and that is death by the same rune stone divination. So peace should actually be up, right? So why am I showing you this? Because posture, again, it is so important because we can use our body as a symbol, okay, to create what we want in this life. It is possible. And that is what we will see more of. If we put ourselves into resonance with it, it will come and attract to us. That is just how it works. So, a little bit of homework. Let me ask you, how can you work in some power posing with yourself and your child? I love hitting the punching bag, right? I kick it and I have my hands up. And it's great. It's a great way to do power posing, or even a simple jumping jack, okay? Like that guy, like this gentleman over here, right? Doing the jumping jack, okay? It is very powerful, right? But it's so simple. So I leave you with that. And please, remember, children have abundance all around them, and they are constantly power posing. You just have to get them out into nature. Give them a chance. So remember, every light you see is either fighting disease or feeding it. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the lesson notes. And I look forward to seeing you on the next lesson. Thanks so much for your time.